Thicky Thought, welcome to the stream, man. How are you, dude?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
I know I'm excited for this one. It's good to see you again. I think the timing of this is important. I warned the stream that it might not be the most optimistic outlook they've ever heard, but I think it's an important one. And dude, I think you did a really good job on Saturday Spaces. That was a really solid listen. How do you feel that was?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it all happened just because you told me, this would be a sick time to stream. All these streaming efforts have been because of you.
I know I'm listening. I'm like depressed, but
It wasn't meant to be depressing, but yeah.
they're important though, and I'm excited to cover some of the stuff today. I mean, I guess to start, like, why don't you rip a quick intro into who you are, sort of how you got here, and then we can get into some details.
Yeah, so I started trading crypto in like early 2023. I before that I'd worked on a crypto startup, and before that I was like a quant trader for a high frequency trading firm. And I think I just got very lucky with the timing of when I got into crypto. It was right after the FTX crash. Everything was down in the dumps, and I basically like rode a 3 year sort of bull market up. And people always like to say like the environment that you first get started in crypto in like really imprints into your mind like really heavily. And luckily for me, it was just like a period of just intense PvP. It was just like, hardcore people like trading tiny size coins, a lot of like pump and dumps and crime and manipulation. So it really like I think helped me hone like my execution skills and like chart reading and like timing markets and like really low time frame sort of execution that like is like the backbone of a lot of my edge now.
How would you describe your trading style and what areas you generally focus on in the market?
Yeah, so I like to think about it as like you kind of have like a bag of tricks, and you just pick up more and more tricks as you stay in the market. And at the start, the tricks were a lot more low time frame and just like scalping around. Like I'd see like, oh, this guy is like clearly there's like an order going on, and as soon as that order ends, like it's gonna revert that flow. So a lot of that sort of like type of trading off of like Twitter narratives, trading off of like liquidation events. And I guess like as you begin to see more and more cycles, you start picking up like longer term pattern recognition. So like, oh, like this is how long approximately like a bullish narrative takes for a certain type of coin, and you start being like just to be able to like time things better, stuff like that. So it's gotten a lot more like longer term, a little bit more like thematic, a little bit more cycle based than how it started. I think
Okay.
that's like the path for most
Yeah,
traders
yeah,
that
yeah.
like get into this space.
I think that makes sense. I like the bag of tricks framing. Actually, I think that's really sharp.
Yeah, it's like in basketball. You got like a few moves.
Yeah, yeah. You might have a few. I got a couple more, but I uh, I want to just lay the groundwork a little bit, but on how you think about things. But I guess to zoom out and just to start with like a broad question and maybe frame this a little bit. What do you think has happened to crypto, and what do you attribute its general underperformance and just like disappointment over the last probably year and some change? I guess since Trump coin January 17th, 2025.
Yeah. Um, Let me see. Let me think about how to start. I think broadly, like markets are a very interesting sort of like truth discovery machine. And in this case, it's trying to answer like what is this asset that we're trading? Like what is Bitcoin? What is Ethereum? What is alts? And like the narrative around each of those things has constantly been in flux. It's like overshot, undershot. We've like shaved off parts of the narratives that we've realized like wasn't the truth. And I think, ever since I started, the biggest narrative was that it was well, the narrative that was used for the initial pump was that it was a store of value and that it was getting an ETF. So it was getting like all these flows that couldn't access it before would be able to access it. And the ETF brought us from like roughly 20K to 70K. And the second sort of wave came in 2024 with Trump's election, where, the big thing underpinning it was that it's getting sort of institutional support and like presidential support. And eventually there's going to be a strategic Bitcoin reserve where they buy Bitcoin. And that didn't really happen ever.
Mhm.
But, and I guess like the third wave of like the narrative was that like these people are buying Bitcoin with DATs and MSTR, and everyone can access it in their 401k, and they have like a leveraged sort of expression of it as opposed to like having to buy spot. Especially this mattered more for ETH and alts. But yeah, those are the three waves I'd say of like what is this thing that we're trading, and each of them have kind of, some of the truth is retained, and some of them have like some parts of those narratives have kind of been shaven off and discarded.
I don't know exactly how to frame this question, but how do you think about the impact of narrative versus price? Like when we talk about these narratives that have gotten Bitcoin to certain prices, there's a lot of overhanging narratives right now, and there's quantum FUD. There's Bitcoin has become sort of this Trump proxy asset that makes it uninteresting for the same people that are buying gold. There was initially this digital gold narrative that's potentially being invalidated right now. Like, how do you actually gauge the importance of these narratives, and how much of it is just prices up, prices down, and we're looking for things to attribute why they're trading the way they're trading?
Yeah, it's a good question. I I think price and narrative are they're like a reflex. It's like a chicken and egg thing. They're like a reflexive
Yeah.
process. Like sometimes it lags, and that's like, every people say like, oh, price leads narrative, or like, but like obviously no, like people have a reason for doing things, and a lot of the times like when that reason is consensus amongst everyone, like things happen. Like if a piece of news comes out and everyone buys it because of that news, like it's clear like, roughly why it thinks something went up. So I view it as like a process that like self reinforces itself. Like if an asset just constantly reacts to a certain type of new information in a certain way, it's going to reinforce amongst market participants, oh, this thing, you're supposed to bid this thing when that happens, right? It like trains this causality in people's brains. And eventually, like if it keeps doing that, eventually it just becomes like this is what this asset is. And it takes a long time. Like if it's like done this for 3 years, it takes a long time to like untrain that behavior. It needs a lot of negative reinforcement for people to finally just give up and say like, oh, this thing actually doesn't do that. It was just an artifact of that regime that doesn't apply anymore. And I think like it's unclear whether we're going through that process right now in Bitcoin. Like we aren't being rewarded for the same type of narratives that we used to get rewarded for. Like like the biggest one was like when the Silicon, like when Silicon Valley Bank failed and everything went down, and then suddenly Bitcoin was the only asset that like ripped 50%. Like that was a huge like reinforcement event for like, okay, this is like the asset I long when there's chaos in the streets. When the traditional order is breaking down, this is the thing I long. And now that that's happening in 2026, like people aren't being rewarded for that behavior, and it's like questioning the entire narrative. So that's how I describe the current, what's going on right now.
Yeah, because I find myself as Bitcoin is where it is right now, and I read Twitter too much, and maybe I overthink about some of these things, and I find myself just bouncing from, okay, this narrative is the reason why, then that gets validated or invalidated. Okay, it's this narrative is the reason why. This narrative is the reason why, and it's hard to sort of gauge what is actually important and is actually just noise. How do you think about the narrative for Bitcoin right now? I guess to start with crypto, and what what would validate its success moving forward, or like invalidate its failure as time goes on?
I think now is especially tough because like there's these like one-time overhangs that are they're sort of like distorting the truth discovery process. Like we had this one-time flow come in with ETFs and with the DATs and MSTR, and it's kind of like crowding out like organic demand. It might have like brought like a lot of demand from the future. It just might have just jammed it in all in the present. So now it's kind of like, you know, turning through that like that like huge just price movement. So it's like hard for it to like react to events like it should.
Interesting. Did you want to add to that or no?
Yeah. What was the original question again? I like lost track.
I
Sorry.
was asking you like where like I basically was asking like what is the current narrative for Bitcoin as you think about it, and then what would you want to see to validate its future success or like invalidate its inevitable failure? Is kind of like basically
Yeah.
like both sides
So
of
I
it.
mean, I think like the canonical sort of like dream like narrative is like this is the thing that like is the next monetary system. It's the new form of order. It like sort of solves um, like the problem of chaos and anarchy when the old global order fails, when people lose trust in the fiat system. And people are definitely losing trust in the fiat system, but the marginal bidder, the marginal demand is not flowing into Bitcoin, is flowing into gold right now instead. And there's a lot of ways that you can like view that. Like I don't think it's accurate to say that like people aren't afraid of the global order failing. I think it's more so that like the people that are afraid that have money to allocate are buying gold instead because they're mostly based in the East. And like everyone's had base 16. He had a funny tweet yesterday. Everyone's had like basically 2 years to allocate all of their just shove their cash into assets because they're worried about hyperinflation. So like there might not be that much like extra spare money left. Like typically everyone in the West just shoves their money into equities, and that's how they store their value. And in the East, like China's like M2, like money supply is almost double, more than double the amount that the US has, and they've been kind of like they can't invest in their equities. Like their equities don't do that well. Like the government artificially suppresses it, and there's not many places it can go. Like you can't leave the yuan, right? So this is like an escape valve for them. So you could view it as almost like the way I'm interpreting it right now, which may turn out to be true or false, is that like the Chinese have realized what the Americans realized 2 years ago, that they need to escape their currency into an asset. And because they can't invest in their equities, they're shoving it into gold and silver.
And why do you think like why is gold, silver, and then maybe AI, but we could talk directly gold and silver basically stealing the Bitcoin crypto flows and like outshining it right now? Like, that wasn't something I had really considered had a realistic chance of happening. Maybe that was just naive. But I think it caught a lot of crypto people by storm a little bit. Like, holy fuck, how is this happening?
Yeah, I think that like we don't have the people in the West don't have a very strong theory of like mind for people in the East, mainly because like the language is different and the
Yeah.
internets are completely separate worlds. So you just have like no idea, like even like the journalists and like the academics and the like those important people like don't really like know how to model Chinese thinking very well. So it just kind of just came like by surprise, really.
Were you modeling this? Like, how do you model Chinese thinking?
I don't know either. I grew up here. I just know that like
It wasn't like a pointed
like
question. I felt like that's a trader,
no
dude.
no no no. Yeah, I don't know. Like my dad will like tell me something. He like watches like Chinese TikTok and like tells me these trends that they're doing, and it's like completely foreign to me. But I guess the point I was trying to make was that like they're very like they're separate things. So it's like very easy to think that like everything that I've experienced represents like totality of like what there is in the world. Um, but yeah, I think that's explains some of like the bewilderment towards this move. Like this is like some serious money flowing through. Like gold's worth 30 trillion, silver's worth 6 trillion. Like this is like multiples of crypto market cap increasing. So it's clear that like there's money out. There's enough money in the world to like pump Bitcoin to $1 million. It's more so of a question of like how do we get these people to actually allocate those, like what we convince them essentially. And like one sort of like Faustian bargain or like deal with the devil that Bitcoin has made is that like it's heavily integrated itself with the US. It kind of sold its soul in order for a quick pump. It's sold. It's like 10% of supply or something. I don't know, like 6% of supply is in US ETFs and MSTR. So like it kind of hurts its like, oh, neutral like credible reserve asset thesis, because it's like viewed as like America Trump coin now.
Which on the narrative top, okay, so like on your initial, like the East is buying gold and silver. There was this, like Bitcoin has always, people have always sort of thought about like the debasement trade, and when central banks post 2023 Russia Ukraine, when they start fleeting away from like U.S. exposure, they're gonna buy Bitcoin. They bought gold, and I feel like there's been a lot of fear mongering on the timeline that this, we're entering end times, and this is all like central bank sophisticated flow into metals. And it does feel like a little bit on how quickly gold, but especially silver, snap back. Like a lot of that you could just justify as hop all the money, like speculative capital, basically like a retail bid. I don't know how you entirely think of that. And then double on the Bitcoin being a Trump US proxy. Like that's the one thing on narrative. It's like this is like relatively a new thought to me. Like I hadn't really considered it up until the last couple months, but it feels impactful, right? It feels impactful. Like if it is the central banks that are hammering, and these foreign powers that are hammering metals, it like makes sense why they wouldn't really touch Bitcoin if they're trying to fleet out of U.S. exposure, right? Like I know it's kind of messy, but what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's two things. I think one is like central banks are buying, but I don't think they're like buying enough. Like this price action is like, it feels more like it's like Chinese like grandmas, like, just like frothily buying as much as they can. It feels like retail, like jamming it in rather than like central bank. Like central banks definitely account for some of it, but they don't typically like, fight like this quickly for things like this. It's like a good narrative that like helps, like,
Yeah.
oh, even if like I can I can go all in on this thing, and it's not going to go like to zero because like central banks are buying it. So it just gives like a little bit of safety, which adds like more convexity to the. And the second thing is that like on the America coin, what was I going to say on this? Um, what did you say about the America coin again?
Just it's sort of like relating it back to narrative versus price. Like I hadn't really considered how impactful Bitcoin becoming a Trump America proxy could be, but it's seeming like if banks are trying to fleet, central banks are trying to fleet out of
Right.
America exposure. It's like it is impactful.
Yeah, yeah. If it's got American exposure, then it does well with America and it does poorly with America. So it's like, right now we're in a kind of regime where like there's a lot of doubt on American power and the hegemony. So like it kind of suffers from that. And also like central banks don't really need Bitcoin because like the appeal of Bitcoin is like very like libertarian. It's very like, oh, if you're an individual, how do you transport my wealth across state lines or like, across the globe? Like, anything over $1 million of gold is just too cumbersome to actually transport. Whereas like, it doesn't matter if I'm moving $1 billion or $1 of Bitcoin, it's like the same amount of work. But like for central bank, like, just like getting like a ship and an armored vehicle and like some guards, like that's like nothing to them, right? Like to a civilization, it doesn't, it's like so easy to do. So the effort reduction and the portability like doesn't matter as much to a civilization than it does to an individual. And like this is like an important trend. This is an important thing to like distinction to make because like I think one of the biggest trends we're seeing in civilization right now is just like this K-shaped economy, which reflects like, oh, it turns out that the developments of the civilization are different from the developments of the individual person. And the individual person like matters less and less. They're disposable, and they've become a lot more disempowered than just times of the past. So it might not matter, like, all of China can't even like speak freely. Like it might not matter that people have these individual freedoms as long as like the overall machine survives. So that kind of like attacks a little bit of the Bitcoin case.
Could you explain if the K-shaped economy idea accelerates how you want to position and exist within that, like as an individual?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on, I think, your relative stats. Like, I think you should always prioritize just accumulating enough wealth and resources to like essentially be emancipated from labor and like not worry about, like, you can survive off your interest essentially. And that sort of like shifts your mindset less from like an offensive standpoint into a defensive one, and the defensive one turns into like, how do I maintain my wealth, and how do I keep up with the growth of the rest of the world? So I guess there's like two. Which do you? Is there a particular the offense, the defense game that you want to talk about?
Probably offense for the sake of Twitter and the stream.
Yeah, I figure most of your viewers are like, especially like if they're trenching, or especially if like they're younger in the 20s, like they feel this like degen Spartan type of vibe of I need to make it. I need to get to like that sort of elite status where I can rest easier. And I think a lot of people like in crypto have that mindset down to a T, where it's like they know about asymmetry. They know that like making 100K is not going to change their life, but like they got to like keep gambling that to make that like 5 milli or something like that. Like I think that's like well ingrained, and I think it's the correct thing to do.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Like if you have 200K and you go back down to zero, it's like not a big deal, right? Worst case, you like go get a job, or it's like going from 0 to 200 is not going to change what you prioritize in life that much. Like you're still going to have to worry about how you're going to eat. But going from like 200K to like 2 mil, like depending where you live, like 2 mil is like, you can make 4% interest, 80K a year. Like that's you're set, right? That's like a whole new level. That's like a threshold that you don't really ever have to retreat from.
How many times have you how many times did you like run it to 200K, 250K, 500K back to zero before you hit a breakout?
Um, I think my story is a little unique. Like I was making like, you know, a pretty good amount for my age after I graduated. So I had a good amount of savings, and I was really early into Solana, and I just bought. I was like scalping Solana NFTs. I had a bot that would essentially just snipe the rare ones and list them for higher, and that was back when like nobody really knew how to
Yeah.
read the Solana chain. And so like when I got started in crypto, like I already had like a decent amount of
How
money.
decent?
Um, like I already had $1 million
Okay.
like already, and just like through my work and through crypto.
Okay. So
So
you
it's like I started off playing defense. I never really had to play aggressive offense, I guess. Like I never really had to run like 100K into a million, and I have to deal with those round trips. So that's like mentally very brutal.
it's a tough spot. How? Okay. So then, what's the other side of it? How do you play defense? In Yeah. How do you play
Yeah,
defense?
I talk about this a lot, where it's like you just need to avoid drawdowns, right? Like just mathematically speaking, like if you lose 50% of your book, you have to make 100% to make it back. If you lose
Yeah.
25% of your book, you have to make 33% to make it back. So like that's this sort of they call it volatility drag, where how like levered ETFs, they follow normal ETFs, but because they're 2x levered, like if they lose 10%, make 10%, they've actually lost a percent, right? So like that kind of volatility in your book is like bad for your mental health, but also like mathematically it increases your chance of ruin by a lot. So when you get to that like 1-2 million level, like you have to switch your strategy, right? Like you can't just be like, I'm gonna make the next 10x. It doesn't really matter if I blow up. Like that stuff might help you get from 0 to 1 or 0 to 2, but like after you cross that threshold, it gets really it's not as asymmetric. So you do have to shift that mindset, and that shift in mindset I've noticed is like the undoing of a lot of like talented young traders that like make it to that level and just lose it back down again. Because like making 100K just on one trade is like easy, but like making like 1 or 2 mil is like that's you need like a lot of good trades to get there. And yeah, it can be quite psychologically damaging to like undo so much of that work in like one decision. It really like yeah, it's sad to see when people go through it, and it's like it's easily fixable.
I like that easily fixable. I want to ask you one more on this topic, and we can go back to some crypto stuff. Is like people talk about the K-shape economy. Like Centrini's always tweeting. Like people are always tweeting. Like this is Fei Zhao's tweeting. This is where we are. This is what's coming. Can you just like explain how that generally plays out? Maybe a historical example, if you have any, or just like how you presume this is going to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. I have like an interpretation of this that's like maybe not consensus, but it's just like through my own like readings of like history and my own like understanding with interaction with the world. But like there's always like the American dream and like the notion of like a middle class, in my opinion, was like a one-time like phenomenon of after winning World War II. And because there's just so much abundance, we were able to like do all these things and elevate everyone's lives so much and have all these like social programs and like welfare programs, and everyone just like was like eating good essentially. And I think like everyone alive, especially like if you're your 20s, like your parents, your grandparents all have this sort of view that like this is like a thing that can persist forever. And you know, the more I realize, the more I like observe just like reality, I realize that like it's kind of the natural order for like winners to win and for losers to lose, and for like this sort of like natural selection to take place and for inequality to happen. That's just how like evolution sort of happens. That's how like good traits get rewarded, and that's how bad traits get sort of selected out of the pool. So I realized that like a K-shaped economy is actually just like the natural state. That's the equilibrium. That's like if you don't do anything, that's what happens. And you know, we've attempted to like fix this through like different tax schemas and like redistribution. And it's gotten to a point where like we've indebted ourselves so much due to these like redistributive measures to fight the K-shaped economy, right? Like we're bankrupting ourselves with Social Security, with Medicare, with Medicaid, with all these expenses. And it's like we've hit like a certain point where it's like we know that we can't do this any longer. But also like, are we willing to, as a culture, as a society, just like give up this notion of like, you know, everyone kind of is still the same, like of a strong middle class, of egalitarianism, and like we've kind of reaching that like cognitive dissonance now that is like explaining a lot of like the angst and like all the asset price movements and all those like social and political movements that are happening right now. So that's my read on what on why we are where we are.
And at what point do we just give it up and just let it go? And
I don't
what
think
are the
it'll be
signs that they are like giving it up?
so like right now the signs are that like they are sort of fucking with the currency so that it looks like everything's good and it looks like, oh, the stock market's up, GDP's up, your wages are up. But like when you actually go and try to buy stuff, you're like, wow, I can't buy shit.
Can't
Like,
buy
I can't
anything.
do anything. Right, yeah. So like they're trying to hide it right now because like if people don't understand finance that well, so like it's hard for them to like they know like how much they get paid, but they don't like it's hard for them to like sort. It takes a while for them to grasp like, oh, I can't afford things anymore. So that's how they're trying to slow things down. But and they're trying to like it's not just like people are just gonna like be like, oh, okay, like this is just how it is. I'm gonna be at the bottom of the totem pole. Like no, like they're gonna like fight for their place in society. So I think it manifests in like a lot of like political upheavals, a lot of like you know, the most recent trend was like you know the people the MAGA right felt very they felt like they were at the bottom of the totem pole after like DEI and like you know
Yeah.
this woke stuff, and that's what really sort of like got them to like get out and like vote and like you know it's like counter trend rally type thing.
Huh?
So like you know the
Counter
next
trend.
there was going to be like very violent counter trend rallies from the people who get put at the bottom of the totem pole that will lead to a lot of political instability. So maybe we have like you know an AOC, Bernie type of regime where they're like very like you know this regime is very positive for asset holders, but like maybe we get a regime that's like very you know punitive towards asset holders. So I think that the key part here is to like remain nimble and remain plugged in and to invalidate quickly because people that like just stick to a thesis and stick to their guns and just ride it to death, like those people, like they, for the most part, probabilistically, they always end up with nothing.
I love the counter trend rally because it's exactly what it was. It was violent. It snapped back fast. It also feels like we're about to snap back in the other direction relatively fast as well.
I think it could, and you know, the function of that is like asset prices, right? Like asset prices are all that Trump has to like keep his coalition together. As soon as if the Ponzi collapses, then like people are going to defect, and there's going to be a lot of anarchy.
Yeah, you're right. And it feels like it's ready to bounce off, make a little double top here and test the bottom of the range.
I mean,
Um
dude, yeah, like a lot can change in 3 years. Like the election is in 3 years. Like a lot can change. That's why like I don't, because things change so much. Like I think it's really important to just to like I said, like stay nimble and not like marry yourself to anything.
so we have like three, a little less more years of Trump. And crypto sort of looks how it does. Metals just had this crazy run. Um Warsh just got appointed. How are you positioned in the market right now? And if you're like mostly cash, how are you generally thinking about the most exciting verticals to play in over the next like couple months, couple years?
Yeah. I've mostly just been scalping around crypto. I was like mostly focused long at the start of the month, and then focused short on the latter half of last month. Um, on the long side, like crypto's been very disappointing. Like
Yeah.
things just like don't
Yes.
move as up as much as you want them to, and they always like are round tripping stuff. It's been very frustrating trading this thing. It's kind of like lost. It's like the collective sort of belief that it can go higher, and there's just not enough money. There's too much supply, I guess, in crypto. Um, I think like the metals volatility has been quite insane. Like it's incredibly liquid. Like you can just market buy $1 billion of gold and it'll move like 10 bips. And like even silver is like very deep. So
Whoa.
it's like very liquid, very volatile. And you're trading against like tourists essentially, right? Like you're trading against like Chinese grandmas. A lot of times they form price action that you've seen before in crypto. Like you've seen these like wicks and stuff. So I do think like there's been a lot of interest in trading the volatility there, which has explained a lot of the reason why like hype has done so well, because it's kind of vampire attacked a lot of crypto speculative flow into trading these traditional
100%.
assets.
That's yeah, I like that you're trading against the grandmas. Um, I wasn't gonna jump here now, but my favorite thing I've heard you say in the last couple weeks, I guess you said on the Spaces, I think in response to Frank or something, and it's the only thing I've been repeating it all day, is that in order to have, I don't know if you were referring to it as it relates to on chain, but I'll take that route. In order to have like another on chain mania, you need a large pool of like unsophisticated actors with capital.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like an important thing. It's like part of like not being married. Like I don't want to marry myself to just like I only make money through trading perps. I only make money through trading spot. I only make money through on chain. Like I it's important I think to identify yourself with like I just make money regardless, and I like to go where the money is easiest. I think the poker players understand this a lot, where it doesn't really matter. Like you just want to play against like the worst people that have the most money, right? And sometimes that'll be a game that you really have a lot of tools and experience playing. But sometimes they don't want to play that game, right? Like sometimes they want to play a different game. And like, are you going to wait for them to come back, or are you going to go to them and learn how to play their game and try to beat them there?
Something I like didn't account for. I mean, I showed up to crypto basically 2021, the beginning of it, end of 2020. Something I didn't account for what was happening in the crypto market is that it was a very unique set of just things happening at the same time. One of which is there's this like massive pool of like the most unsophisticated actors possible to have money via stimmies, COVID stimmies, and then it's also was this like unique time where if you wanted to be investing in the bleeding edge of tech, it was basically crypto. Like there wasn't that many. Maybe I'm naive on this. There wasn't that many alternatives. AI
It
hadn't
wasn't.
progressed to where it
Yeah.
was. Like OpenAI existed, but ChatGPT wasn't a thing yet. Like there wasn't
Yeah.
really AI. Robotics was sort of seen as far out, and you had this
Yeah.
like unique opportunity of a lot of really dumb people with large amounts of money and nowhere else to put it, all in the same place at the same time, where there's not that many assets, right? There's Bitcoin, there's ETH, and then a small pool of alts. NFTs happened.
Right.
Pump.fun wasn't really a thing yet. Like there wasn't that much fragmentation of liquidity. What would it take to see that type of build up again somewhere else? Like, is that happening in metals right now? Is it happening in AI?
I think it was happening in AI. Like, I think you could raise a lot of money just for having like no product. But it's like a game that's like it's hard to switch over, right? Like with crypto, just it was very unique in that like anyone with an internet access could play it. Whereas like with
Yeah.
this like AI stuff, you need to have like a good pedigree and you have to like know the right VCs and the right education. But it was also like very bubbly like that as well. Um, and yeah, like I like the way you put it. Like a lot of these things were just like the stars aligning at this point in time that like led us up to like a certain outcome. And it's like unclear whether they'll align that cleanly ever again. And like when you look back at the price chart, you look back at history, like a lot of like notable historical events were just like one-time things. You know, it was just like very lucky alignments of the stars. So I think that's like a way to interpret that is just like we may not ever get like a 2021 type of regime with that amount of access, with that little sophistication, and you know extraction wasn't as set up so like everyone could make a lot of money. Like it might not ever happen again, and I think that's you know it's important to like be okay with that reality if it doesn't,
You
even
know,
though it might.
someone, it was Trader Noah is his handle on Twitter, made a tweet, and he basically was just saying, I think it's the first time in crypto for when he's been around, definitely for me, that you sort of have to at least look into the abyss and accept that maybe, there's like there's Bitcoin, which I think is obvious, at least to me, obviously going to win. Stablecoins have already won. Perp dexes have like relatively already won, but everything else via on-chain being able to create investable assets is sort of it's in jeopardy. Like it might not win. I think that it's going to, but I think it's in jeopardy for the first time. Like I had always looked at it as Bitcoin will just win and then everything else will catch flows as a byproduct. And I think that's largely how crypto cycles have like played out. And I think now you look at it and it's not exactly true. And I think another thing that happened with 2021, digesting it, is that because you had this God setup of stars aligning at the same time, it really like preset people's expectations for the returns that you can expect on
Yeah.
crypto assets. And so when we catch like focused flows on BTC, a little bit of ETH and some of these other things in 2024, 2025, and everything, like we don't get the traditional alt season, people really get antsy and kind of like lose their minds a little bit. I think we're like recovering from fucked expectations a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an excellent way of putting it. And I think it's important to realize that like this is actually like very similar to the conversation we were having earlier, where it's like, you know, we were talking about how we had this like great lifestyle after World War II, and maybe that was just like a one-time thing, and maybe we'll never return to that level of living ever again. Like I feel like it might be the same, and it might be analogous to people looking back at 2021. And you know, if you think about it, like the amount of money that was made and for how easy, like it's not normal to make that much money. Like making $1 million is very hard in everywhere else. It's like a very efficient game. It's like not something that you can expect just to like that you should. Yeah, it takes like effort and like reasons for it to happen. It's not like it'll just fall into your lap again. Um, so I do think it's important to like realize. I guess like it's like a lesson in gratitude, right?
Yeah, it is.
That
Okay,
was
I've never heard the World War II thing before. Like, I've never thought about it like that. I should probably do more like history reading, where it's just like the God setup for America. Stars just like aligned for America,
it was a
right?
god setup for America. It was the 2021 crypto,
It
but
was
for
21 for
America, honestly.
America, and I wasn't around to trade it. You get spots like what happened in 2021 with crypto. How do you identify these setups happening, and how do you like capitalize on them? Because you could assume we're gonna see another spot somewhere in some market. Maybe it's not crypto, maybe it's not AI, but something similar, maybe smaller in like blast radius, but it will happen again somewhere. How do you like
Yeah,
position
like
to be able to identify it as it's happening?
see, this is something that like I don't have like that much I think none of us can have that much experience in if you're like our age, because like these things are like all the times are like, a couple times in a decade these things happen, and maybe when you like have like lived for a long time, you start seeing the patterns. But a lot, I think you have to be plugged in, and you have to like just keep track of like what's happening and where things are going. That's just like number one. And then number two, I think, is you just have to be willing to try new games. And that part is hard because like, you're already good at one game. It's hard to like climb down the hill and like be bad at another game again. Like you just want to be like the best at this one thing for the rest of your life. But I guess things and like, people really life really rewards you for being able to like regress your ego and your status and your self perception in order to chase opportunity.
Be careful slinging around that our age thing, by the way. Maybe your age. Because what do you what is the path forward for others in crypto? As in basically on chain, internet capital markets, on chain, these not as like necessarily meme coins, but these pseudo equity tokens that are kind of attached to businesses that the AI devs are now sort of clinging on to. This idea that you could, launch your company, go public at zero on Solana or on Base or any of these chains. Like, what is the path forward for creating investable on-chain assets where it feels it's the most uncertain it's probably ever been?
Yeah. That's funny. I just to talk about like the analogy is funny because like you see it in politics a lot where everyone's just like, oh, remember the American dream of like two kids in a yard and a dog and all this kind of, it's kind of the same vibe. It's like, oh, remember when we could just log in and then trade the new launch, and CZ tweets about it and we make like 500K. Like we got to bring back those times. I think it's like there's something there with like selling that message to people in order to like organize a movement and doing something about it. Um, but yeah, like it has to be casino, right? Like all of crypto is a speculative asset. So the only thing that actually has self-sustaining ability and the ability to like create a token and have it do well is to create a casino that generates a lot of revenue. And like hype and like to a lesser degree like lighter and all these other things are examples of that. But it's like hard to build. It's competitive, right? Like you can't just like build an exchange. It's not like you need like a lot of technical ability to do it. Um,
Like,
but
what's
yeah.
the path forward for something like a Pump.fun token, like in just like token deploys in general?
Um, like Pump.fun or like the people that deploy tokens on Pump.fun?
Maybe both. I sort of meant the asset Pump.fun, but it kind of goes
I
hand in
think
hand,
Pump,
right?
yeah, like Pump at like 1.5 billion is like very fair valuation. Like it makes a lot of revenue, but it's unclear how many years it can sustain for. So the multiple has to be just by definition very low. Like when you look at like the multiples of these other online casinos like Stake or whatever, Rainbet, like the multiples are always like lower than what you expect from software. And that's just because like, yeah, these things they can't exist forever. Like people just don't have that much money. Like people don't want to like lose 50K a year gambling every year for the next 30 years of their life, right? Like people like do it for a year or two and they stop. So um, I think it's like got a floor. It may not have like a huge ceiling unless things come back, but yeah, like I think it's pumps like a fine asset. Makes a lot of money. For the token deployers, um, the game is like gotten too solved.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Mhm.
like it's the extraction is too efficient, and there will be regimes where like there will be like a runner again, and it'll go pretty high, and some people will make some money. But I think for the most part, like the whole reason why Pump Fund coins did well in the first place was because it was a new game that wasn't solved yet. Like the angle there was that like perps were so extractive, but
Yes.
meme coins weren't, and it's a new thing that people were willing to like gamble on because they knew that someone wasn't like an expert in it. So I think like it has to be a new type of game, right? That like isn't as solved, that like gets
So do
the
you
retail.
believe this idea that there will always be a new game in crypto? Because for crypto's existence, there always has been a new game, right? You have ICOs, you could DeFi Summer, you could NFTs, You get meme coins,
Yeah.
you get AI coins, you get meme coins again, and then we sort of hit a brick wall a little bit.
Yes, I think there will always be new games. I think it's bad to bet against that. People want to gamble.
I like that take. Or I like that you like that take, actually.
Yeah, I know you believe this take.
I do. All right, I like to believe it. I like to believe it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of trenchers like very plugged in on like the new games that pop up. They're very early to that type of thing. They're very plugged into it.
It's honestly impressive how much, and I'll move on from on chain in a second, but how much speculative capital still exists to bid garbage AI runner right now on Solana while Bitcoin is 70, 76, 77, 78. It's relatively impressive, actually, how quick these, the Molt book goes viral and tokens at 120 mil day one.
Right.
It's impressive that that's possible still.
Yeah, yeah. It's like its own ecosystem. Like I noticed the same thing. My dad used to play a lot of internet poker.
Okay.
And like after the 08, 09 crash, like people were still playing a lot of poker. It was still like lucrative to play. Yeah. So like even in depressions, like people want to gamble, right? Like so that's why I think like to a certain extent, like it's kind of immune to Bitcoin and ETH price moves, especially since like people that gamble may not even own that much Bitcoin and ETH anymore.
They don't own it. They don't own any.
Yeah. So like yeah, there'll always be a floor of gambling, which is why I think like Pump the asset like can't go too low until there's a new game to play.
So this is a better game. You said the take on spaces. This is a really good space, by the way. Too many bozos asked questions, but it was other than the questions. Some of the questions were lame, but it was good space. You said, I wrote it down. You said crypto has largely served its purpose.
I think I don't know that for certain. That's just like one angle I have is that
Can you explain what it means?
yeah, so I guess I was saying that like a lot of times like when I look like back through history, like a lot of times like things are just used to like as coronation mechanisms and then they just get discarded away. Like if you look at like celebrities and movements, like a lot of the times like they'll like burn very hot for like a few years and then they'll
Yes.
like society will just discard them. Like right now it might be like clavicular, like what is the underlying emotion? It's like young men feel like they have no upwards mobility and they realize that like maximizing their looks is like a path that they can utilize to be upwardly mobile in society. And like, clavicular, like a lot of these times, like these streamers are very hot and they like, after a few years, they kind of become irrelevant. And like, what was his purpose, right? His purpose was to like be an avatar to channel this ideology through. So like, I can see, I don't know if this is for certain, but I could see Bitcoin being like that, like a clavicular, but for the idea of fiat debasement. It like the purpose was to serve as like an alarm bell for everyone to realize that like trust was being lost in these institutions. And then maybe like once people find better assets to like express that view, Bitcoin becomes less relevant. So that's just like one angle I had for how Bitcoin could just be irrelevant again.
If sick take, I haven't heard you say that like that. If that's true, and Bitcoin was just an alarm bell for raising awareness to these problems, the problems don't go away. If anything, they accelerate. It then comes down to what vehicle do you pick. I don't know if you have a direct answer to this, but if not Bitcoin, what is the best expression of Bitcoin ideology?
I think it's hard to say because I feel like a lot of people think that they could just like pack up all their wealth and leave. And that's like a lot harder in actuality. Like if you could do like why haven't more rich Chinese like escaped? They're just like stuck in China and they're just like, yes, they have like some like offshore wealth and stuff, but like for the most part, like they're just stuck in China. They just accept this sort of loss of personal freedom and they accept the capital controls essentially. So I feel like that probably is going to happen. And you try to find assets within those constraints where like, oh, like, we're all just playing this game of, I don't want to say musical chairs. Have you heard of Schelling coin?
No, it was
Vitalik wrote. So like a Schelling point, it was come up with this like military strategist. Whereas like if you wanted to meet someone in New York, but you didn't know when and where, like where would you go and when?
If you wanted to meet
And like a lot
somebody
of,
in New York?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can't communicate with them. Like, where would you go?
I don't even know how to answer that.
Yeah, so like a lot of people might say, "Oh, I'd go to Times Square at noon,"
Okay.
right? And it makes sense why, because it's
Because
like
like the
that's like,
yeah, yeah. Most
yeah, it's just
population
like everyone,
dense. Yeah,
yeah, like it's the most iconic thing. It's like the most like,
yeah.
and that's what like a Schelling point is. It's like all these independent actors kind of just like gravitate towards this thing because it just makes the most sense. They don't even communicate. It's just like what people tend to pick. And I think like the whole name of the game is just to like play Shelling coin essentially. It's just to guess where the herd's gonna go and what they're gonna allocate in. And I have like no idea what it's gonna be. Like I'm not like an expert forecaster. Like my edge just relies in like reading the herd and like seeing kind of like one or two steps ahead of where it wants to go and then like bringing that into the future. I don't know where it's going to go 10, 20 steps in the future.
The
So
Schelling coin. That
that's
is so sick. Okay, wait. So you gave this take on spaces that like kind of relates to this, where you're talking about how I'm gonna completely botch it, so fix it for me. Like, um, the people that are on like the bleeding edge of a new movement or a new asset that's gonna go parabolic don't have the historical domain knowledge and like world context to understand like how big it can get, right? Like Peter Thiel selling all of Facebook on day one versus the people that have like the deep domain knowledge and like world expertise to understand how big these things can get aren't tapped in enough to the ground floor to understand like what is evolving and happening right now. Does that make you said this or no?
I said something like the example is slightly flipped, but you got the idea generally right. Like I guess I view people as like an exponential moving average of their prior experiences. And like people like us are very
Actual
just
moving
plugged
average of
into
their
like
prior experiences.
people like us are like very like tapped in every day. We're spending, like hours just staring at this thing. Like we know like what changed from yesterday to today. We're like we have the last, 20 days like memorized in our head. And we know what the steady state looks like. And we know like what could possibly happen tomorrow, what could possibly happen in 2 days. But like a lot of times when you like fit that closely to like the local price movements, you kind of like lose like the broader view of like what my place is in the world, where this thing could go, where it's going, like what's happening everywhere else. So it's like if you're always waking up and going into one casino every day, you might not realize when like a whole crowd of people might leave another casino and then come to your casino and just like jack it up, and you might just like at the first pump you might just sell too early because you don't realize like the context of like, oh, there's a huge wave of people coming over and I'm actually very early to this thing. That's why I think it's important to like balance like being very plugged in and this very like micro thinking with like the big broader picture with what's happening everywhere else in the world, so that like when stuff does come into your house, like you don't fucking sell too early. Like you can actually estimate properly like where it's gonna go.
That's just, I like the exponential moving average take. It's so good. Um,
How'd you like it?
taking that and going back to your what we talked about at the beginning with like MAGA being this counter trend reversal, and then the clavicular idea of just like how quickly he rose to fame. Like something I really feel, and maybe it's hard for me to judge how much of how I view the world and how what I experience on a day to day basis is the bubble that I live in, because most people don't live the same reality that I live. Right, I'm hyper online. I'm trading these speculative markets. Net worth is swinging. I'm on the computer way more than I'm outside. There's just a feeling that these cultural shifts where everyone's so plugged into the internet are whipsawing at a level that's like so intense that by the time you could even digest one thing, we're on to the next. It manifests in how these like on-chain coins trade. It manifests in like the news cycle. Like I don't know, I'm gonna ask you about the Epstein files later, maybe. But like how quickly that's like this, the zeitgeist, and then we're on to the next thing. It manifests in creators, celebrities, like streamers, how quickly someone overnight is like the biggest thing in the world, and then in a week later, it's like what happened to them. It almost makes you question like what is the moat of like culture, and I don't even know what my question is on this topic, but have
It's a
you
good. I know. I like it.
do
Yeah.
you
I think this is kind of depressing to me, but like, yeah, like when it comes to like internet, culture and internet status, it decays very fast. Like you can try to quantify like how much my following or how much my influence is worth. And like you just have to view it as it has like, 50% a year hyperinflation. Like if I don't post for a year, if I'm just gone for a year, like how relevant will I still be in a year? And the answer is like zero, like very irrelevant, right? So that's like the sad nature of it. And that's just what society rewards. Like in the cultural game, it rewards you for being very extreme,
Yes.
and you basically serve as like an avatar for this like giant movement, this this collective thought that like everyone else kind of shares, and like they channel it through you as like the mascot of it. And then like once that movement sort of played out, once society's like sort of evaluated like what truths are in this movement that are worth retaining versus like what isn't true, then like it doesn't really have a use for you anymore, and that's when you like fall back into irrelevance. Which is why it's like, you know, money and financial capital is the hardest capital. It doesn't decay as fast. So these streamers, these like cultural icons, like the name of their game is to convert that social capital into financial capital as quickly and as efficiently as possible without like, it's always like bad for your influence to like try to make money off of it. But like they try to do it as like cleanly as possible. So that's like the meta there.
Someplace I felt it, really felt it, was this Moltbook thing, dude. It's like this. Someone launches this. Like it's never been possible in like human history. It's like someone launches this software on Twitter, and within 24 hours, basically every single titan of tech world is talking about this thing all at the same time, all at once, all in one day. Elon and Sachs and all these people, Karpathy, all these people at the same time, instant, like snap finger, hyper J curve, and then 3 days later, you're like probably never gonna hear about it again, ever. Like you might.
Wait, can you pull the startup? I haven't even followed this thing. I've never.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, what does it look like?
It's
I
like
know what it is.
It's like a Reddit clone. It looks like Reddit. It's like a Reddit clone. Sign in with your agent or whatever. It gives you some code to run to authenticate your like Claude bot or Claude code, and then they can go autonomously post on this thing. It's more like a thought experiment, I think, than anything.
Yeah, like to your point, like things move so much faster now because of the internet. Like there's so many events just like jam packed into like this like a short amount of time. It is crazy to see, and things just accelerate. Like things move fast. Like you can almost view it as like clock speed. Like the whole clock speed of civilization has just gotten so much faster. Like we process things at 120 frames per second instead of like 10 frames per second now.
It's a little like nauseating. Okay, I want to ask you this as a follow up, and this is like a sensitive topic, so we can skip it entirely if you want. But the only thing that was on my feed this weekend was the Epstein files, which are we're on Twitch. Also, they're pretty gnarly, so let's like navigate it how you want. But I mainly want to ask you it from the framing of how, basically, like, what are the repercussions of civil and like general population like complete distrust in the higher powers that run the country, basically seemingly all at once? Is this something that like blows over? Does this have like real implications? And then my real question on it is like, what's the trade, right? Like that's what I really want to know.
The trade?
But like, does this have real societal implications?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I think it does. I think this is an artifact of the K-shaped economy. So I think like in the 2000s when the middle class was stronger, like what did we argue over? We argued against like for abortion, for immigration, like climate change. It was just like middle class Americans arguing against other middle class Americans.
Yeah.
But now there is no middle class. It's just like the underclass, and then there's the elite. And like the Epstein issue sort of like strikes at the heart of this underclass resentment towards the elite, where like it's a kind of a unifying populist issue, right? Like AOC doesn't like Epstein. The left isn't very favorable towards Jews, and people like Nick Fuentes, who are like starting populist movements on the right, are very like America first. They don't like this sort of, elitism that's going on either. So I do think that like this Epstein thing is a driving force behind unifying like the MAGA right and the sort of like AOC left. And 2028 might look less like traditional Democrat versus Republican, and it might look more like populist versus elitism. And I think Epstein is like a key driving issue. And you asked like how you can like make money off of this, right? There's like two ways,
Okay.
in my opinion, you can make money off of any ideology. Like one is you acquire social capital, is like you just say it loudly, you say it articulately, and you get a lot of um, like essentially popularity for
Uh-huh.
saying something that like society doesn't really know how to say yet, but they feel deep
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
But like, yes, social capital is not as interesting because, like we said, well, it can be. But anyway, the second way is like a financial way, and you put trades on this, and it's like hard to like think of a direct expression because you can have like a completely correct idea, but if you don't get the expression right, you can just make no money. Um, to be honest with you, I I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I've like come to this realization that there will be, um, yeah. You were gonna say something?
Well, I convinced myself it was long Bitcoin at some tie together way on this like anti-American. The system is a make money, basically escape the system by any means possible type of concept. It clearly, I mean, we didn't like pump this weekend on this news, but it feels like
Yeah,
a general trend. But what's the correct vehicle is obviously the question, right?
yeah. I mean, the tough part is that like I view rich crypto traders as part of the elite, and like crypto is viewed as like something that is, I think it will get increasingly viewed as like anti-populist
Yeah, yeah.
because before
White
it was a
collar
populist
elite,
thing.
like yeah,
Yeah, like before it was like, oh, this is a way you can like make money and escape your job. This is like something for the people. But like if crypto stops making money for people, then it's more just like, oh, this is just like a way to swindle money from everybody else. Like so it's very dependent on like how crypto does as an asset. Like is it going to be like the S&P where it like unifies like a coalition, or is it going to be something that will be like sacrificed in the future? Um, I think it could go either way, which is why I don't think it's like the cleanest expression of
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. What else is in the running?
I haven't really thought about it actually. Um,
It's a weird one.
yeah, I think like taxes will probably be a lot higher. There, one argument is that like people will get more of UBI, and it will sort of reverse K-shaped economies,
Mhm.
and then maybe they use that to gamble in crypto. So
Dude,
like,
I kind of think the
but
UBI thing is like how far are we from left candidate running on subsidizing your job if AI takes it? Like how close are we from that? That's probably a topic in 2028 elections, right?
yeah, especially if there's like a large unemployment, I
Like
feel like they
if it
might start.
happens, which it I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been talking about it happening for a while. I don't really think that it has happened that severely, if at all. But it wouldn't take much overnight for it to start happening. That's you got to think that UBI is going to be a huge running thesis.
Yeah, I think it's very bullish, like trenching, if that happens.
It is.
Right? Like, you know, poor people like buying lottery tickets. So yeah, like whatever the trenching looks like in 2028, if it does happen, like yeah, it'll be a very bullish catalyst.
How far in the future are you like? How many steps ahead are you thinking when you're formulating trades that and like a thesis for what you're buying and selling? Like, are you thinking about 2028 on a lot of this stuff? Are you thinking about tomorrow? Like, where are you on the spectrum?
I like to think like across large time frames, but I've realized that you don't get paid for that. You get paid for thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. Like you get paid for like the path. You get paid for like things are going to happen soon. You don't want to be the guy that like buys like Peter Schiff. Like yes, he's like made a fuck ton of gold, but like bro, he was like holding gold for like since 2012. If you look at the gold chart, like it was like 8 years of doing nothing before it finally went up. And if you look at his like compounded growth, it was like 12% a year from 2012 from gold to get to like from 1200 to here. So it's like it's not like spectacular, right? Like it would have been better to take his thesis and then buy Bitcoin instead and then rotate into the gold and make like, tens of thousands percent. So that's why it's like not, it's important that the expression honestly matters so much more than the idea. Like you can just borrow ideas from someone, right? But like figuring out like the best way to express it, I think is where all the money is made.
The Schiff one is an interesting dude. We did this the other day on stream. He's been posting. I mean, he said he basically first went on gold like 19 plus. He's been showing gold for 19 years, bro. Posting daily YouTube videos about it for like 12 years, every day. Peter Schiff live stream gold interview debate for 12 years, bro. If that's what it takes for me and Bitcoin to go to a mill, is 19 years. I'm not that excited. I'm not excited about that.
Yeah. And like imagine if you do it and you're wrong. Imagine how bad that feels.
So see, this is always the thing too about like, this is when I start to get like feel some dread about the being a Bitcoin bull and crypto, and this like idea of being a contrarian is that the fuck part about being kind of a contrarian or being bleeding edge is you don't really know that you're wrong until it's zero and the ship sailed. Like I always thought this about niche example, but Jesse Pollock and Creator Coins on Base. And they're trying to do something that is a really cool concept nobody's ever accomplished before. And so you have to like respect going against the grain and trying it. But the problem with Jesse Pollock and content coins is that there's no way to know if it was correct until either it's taken over the world and everybody has a token, or it's zero and the world has like passed you by 100 times over and you lost everything in the process. It's like it's a weird byproduct of playing the predictions game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And that's life wants you to do that, right? Like life wants you to just like be super convicted and do something. And if you're right, it'll reward you like with a king's ransom. But if you're wrong, like you might just waste like you might just waste a lot of your life just doing nothing. A lot of it's just like, yeah, how do I? It's a personal decision. People that do it, I admire a lot to have that conviction. And even if it doesn't work out, to like stick with something for that long, it is very admirable. But for me, like I'm like a pirate. Like I just want to maximize like my median outcome. I always want to come out on top. And if that means that like I can't be that convicted, I can't be like the last guy on the ship to die. I'm always just gonna. I just want to survive like a cockroach. So that's just my mentality. I think you have to like pick one or the other. And the people that pick something in the middle, or like sometimes they do one, sometimes they do the other, they just end up getting killed. You have to either just be the max conviction guy, or you have to just be like a ruthless mercenary. And don't be anywhere in between.
Mercenary getting the king's ransom. You know, it's the Michael Saylor thing, right? When we look, they're gonna make movies about Saylor. He's either gonna be the biggest retard in finance history or like the richest guy that's ever lived, right? There's no in between on that.
Exactly. There's no in between. Yeah.
It's a crazy. Go.
Yeah, same with Suzu, same with Sam Bankman-Fried. Like these people like are like the lesson, like the icons that like, you know, teach us lessons that we look back on. Like in another world, Sam Bankman-Fried owns 8% of Anthropic. Like FTX is worth like hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Like if CZ didn't shoot himself in his own foot and like topple the entire industry, like maybe Sam Bankman-Fried would be like revealed as a genius. It's just crazy to think about how path dependent a lot of these things are.
How much do you think about that in relation to your own success? Like how much are you indexing for? I want to be like revered as an icon in my domain.
I like the question a lot. It's kind of like how much convexity do you want and how much you're willing to pay for it. And like I have this mindset which is like very contrarian, that is like in crypto at least, it's like I just want to like live a good life most of the lives. And if that means like I give up like the few percent chance that I'm like a complete rock star, I think that's totally fine. And I think that's like a shift from like being from the aggressive mindset to like the defensive mindset that we are talking about earlier. But like there is no right or wrong, right? Like at the end of the day, like it just comes down to personal decision. Like, do I just want to like burn bright and be great, or I'm okay like being all right and not taking those risks? And maybe my answer will change as I get older, or maybe I get bored with life. But you know, like I'm very grateful for how my life has changed from 3, 4, 5 years ago. And like I guess right now I'm in a mode where it's like I kind of just want to let that settle and not take too many risks.
I think it's a good take. I'll let you go in a couple minutes. I have a couple more questions for you.
I'm happy to keep talking as long as you want to.
Okay, cool. Because you're kind of flowing, dude. You know what?
I think it's a good combo, dog.
It's sick. It's sick.
We're
Um,
riffing, yeah.
yeah. As it relates to your own, okay, like you're really introspective. I think more so than most people. You, by the way, I started doing your thing 20 minutes this morning, just in the room pacing, walking around. I'm just talking to myself, like fucking, yeah, like relatively loud too. I'm just talking to myself, no music, nothing, just fucking.
That's hilarious.
Um, you're very introspective. You write a lot, and I think you like put you direct mental strain towards thinking about your situation and the world around you. How do you balance that part, like thinking basically and executing trades? Like, does it get in the way of executing the tape in front of you versus what you're trying to make of the world?
I think it can. I think the good part in crypto is because it moves so fast, like you don't really need to be that concentrated. Like the chart just gives you so much dopamine that like it's just like so natural to be in flow. But I think it can. I think the issue is actually more the latter, where because the chart gives me so much dopamine, it's hard for me to like take a step back and just like think. It's hard for me to like tear myself away from the screen and like reflect on like what's going on. It's so easy just to tunnel vision on like what the micro stuff, on the feed, giving you hits of dopamine all the time. It's hard to separate. So I think that's like the main balance that I really think after you hit a certain net worth milestone, it's so important just to like take time off and like reflect about who you are, what your goals are, like what like this whole experience is like revealed about yourself as a person. And like that sort of deeper thinking, I think, yields a lot of benefit, even if you give up some short-term opportunity in the markets.
You know, crypto is like could be like extrapolated to, or like how crypto trades can be extrapolated to how our discussion about how like cultural on the internet is moving so rapid whipsaw back and forth that at least the optimistic take of this is you could be contrarian, as in have a long term vision for how things are going to play, have conviction in trade, sort of like move slower against the grain and outperform. And I think that uh it feels good to hear that. Like I think people that feel overwhelmed and like dopamine just like overstimulated like want to hear that and believe that to be true. Do you think that this is true? Like the way to outperform in this 24/7 internet society is to move slower?
I don't think it's moved slower. I think it's like two separate skills. Like one of them is like knowing when it is correct to be contrarian. Like this measures like your NPC-ness. Like how good are you at like being agentic and like having conviction when you know the herd is wrong, and basically like yeah, like defecting on the herd. But like there's another skill. You can't always defect from the herd because if you don't keep up with the herd, it'll leave you behind. Like most of the time, the herd is right, right? Just by definition. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. It would die. So like you do the second skill you need is just like how good are you at following the herd? Because like the herd is safe, right? If you're away from the herd, you could just get wrecked. So like you have to be. I think the best traders are elite at both, where like they're very good at figuring out like where the herd is going, how to follow the herd. But when they see the moment to like break away, they have a ton of conviction and they do it with size, and that's how they make money. Like if you like break away at the wrong time, you could like get attacked. I don't know, like by like predators or whatever. There's no safety, so like you have to have both if you want to trade and do well.
I like the like the herd by default is usually right,
Yeah,
or else it wouldn't exist. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It has to be right, but like it's not always right. And it like defecting from the herd takes like a level of like autism and like contrarian psychopathic sort of like self-belief. It's like very like anti-consensus. It's very like almost egotistical to think I'm wrong, I'm right, and
Everyone
everybody's
else is
wrong.
wrong. Okay, wait. There's this Epstein clip from that interview that it's so funny. Every good trader is posting this clip. I think you know what I'm talking about, where he's
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about the market and he's basically saying that the best traders in the world. You can ask them why, what they think about the market, and they'll give you a take, and you ask them why at any given moment, and they can't really tell. It's basically Rhino's ball tingle is Epstein talking about the best traders in the world. Do you think it's true?
I don't think it's true. I think the whole arc of humanity has been like explaining things that can't be explained. And like, yes, I agree that like decision making can be quite hard to explain. But if you ask AI to like form trade ideas for you, like its reasoning is actually getting very good. And I think it'll get good enough to a point where like it will take all the easy trades, and just pluck them away. So like no, I don't think that will exist forever. I think eventually people will be able to explain why they make decisions. Like I think eventually every part of what it means to be human will be able to be explained and deconstructed.
Whoa,
Um, yeah.
that's an insane take, kind of. What are the
Yeah,
implications of that?
yeah. Well, the implications are that like we're not going to be doing this forever. Like it's going to be hard to make money, um, and I don't know what that looks like. Like I think money will help. Like money, if you think about money, like why does it exist? Like the whole point of money is so that you can get other people to like do things for you. But like if people like can't do anything that useful, then why does and like AI is doing everything? Why would they need you to do anything? And if they don't need you to do anything and they have all the power, then like what value does money have? Like obviously like the path to get from where we are to where that is, like money might matter a lot in that path. So you can't just be like, oh, I don't need to make money because that destination looks like this. But yeah, it's like it's not like a terminal end state, right? Like it's like kind of like you always have to be nimble. You can't just like make 100 million bucks and go into a coma. Like you're gonna have to like transition that money into something later, and it's like it's very unclear what that's gonna be. But that's like the grand game of what we're playing, right? That's like the end mission.
So it sort of assumes this like utopic vision of the singularity that does everything perfectly for humanity, and I don't need anyone for anything else, right? Like that vision of like why would you need money with
Yeah, yeah.
AI? Like it's
I don't know if it's utopic because I
okay,
think
maybe
human lives
dystopian,
will
yeah.
suffer. I think human lives will suffer a lot because if you don't need someone to exist, then you just tend to mistreat them. So it'll
Yeah,
be curious
fuck,
to like.
okay. Yeah, low
It's
key.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
sad,
Fair, no, it's a fair take. It's a fair take. I had to think about it for a second.
right? Like you can be a little rude to like the girl at the bottom of your roster, like it's just, it's just I'm sorry, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Until it's like February 13th and you don't have a date. Interesting.
Yeah,
Tell me
but
that.
these things like go ahead.
No, no, finish.
No, no, no.
Well, I wanted to ask on the take of pretty soon AI will take all the easy trades. Like how do you think about traders and AI tools? How quickly that's gonna? Because I think it's pretty obvious to me that maybe we're not there yet, but it's like people are already using LLMs for their personal life, their health, their social life, their relationship life. Like obviously they're going to be using it for the finances. I think it's actually a good Alexander take of at least he's the first person I've heard articulate it, hallucination yield, which is like what the LLMs think the price of an asset should be, and then the delta in between what the price of the asset actually is. If everyone's discussing with the same AI, it's sort of like sci-fi wills this thing into existence. It's an interesting thought, at least. What are you thinking about when you say the AIs will just take all the easy trades?
Yeah, I think it like exacerbates like the K-shaped effect where it's like you don't need as many people to do as many things. Like one person eventually can do the job that like 50 people can do, and that's like the just general trend of technology from like the dawn of history, right? So yeah, like I think like a lot of trades that might have taken like 10 of us to actually turn into existence, like maybe one guy with like really good AI tools ends up doing that, and the other nine become kind of useless. So I think it looks less like, oh, like Skynet's out there like, oh, like let me buy this meme coin because this guy tweeted, but more so just like the top guy just like builds his moat and scales so hard that like the other nine guys that used to need to exist like don't have a job anymore. And like that's like just that happens across all
Yeah, yeah,
markets.
yeah.
Like this is always happening. It's happening in crypto as we speak. Like that liquidation that happened this weekend.
Uh-huh.
Like usually like these liquidation events, like you just mint money, right? But like they happen less and they're less good every time because like people realize that like this is a place you can mint money. If I study these things and I build tools to capitalize on it, then I can just, get more of the gain. So it's gotten a lot more competitive. Like before you could just be at your desk and just like click a few times and suddenly you're up like, $1 million or something. And like you can still do that now, but like it's just harder because there are like people doing this at scale a lot more. So like the easy fruit gets picked. And that's like one example of a trade that gets harder after time.
I like that. Okay, I want to ask you this because I think you're like a pretty aspirational person, all things considered. From where you are right now, what are your goals for the next? I don't know. It could be life goals. I'm more so thinking short term, 5 years. But how do you think about like what you want to accomplish from here?
Yeah, I think like when I first got started in the space, like everyone else, like I had this number and I was like operating from this like sort of scarcity mindset of like, I need to make it, right? And I need to get hyper gamble to elite status. Um, and when I hit that number, like I couldn't work with the same passion as I did before. I'm like, what the fuck is the point of all this? Like I'm missing out. So I took 6 months off in New York and I was just fucking around in real life, trying to like do hobbies, meet with friends, meet people, like discover other games to play. And I found like a few games that I liked, but I ended up realizing that like this is kind of a depressing take. I'm not sure if it's like correct, but like the real world just like moves so slowly that like I just don't get as much fulfillment from interacting with it. Like I still like like sports and hanging out with friends and other parts of your life, but like a lot of it's just so slow and so bureaucratic and just so like it's not like it's different than online. It almost feels like it's like 10 years behind. I'm just like so used to this like constant like dopamine iteration and just like this evolution of ideas and information on the internet that like I realize that like the frontier of humanity is here, right now. And there is no other game to play. And there is no other fast-paced, higher stakes like game with like smart people in the world doing other things in the real world. No, they're all like on the internet, like playing games on the internet. So like when I realized that, and I realized that like I kind of just want to like have fun and um, just like be entertained and like learn stuff and seek truth. It kind of reframed how I view like what I do here every day. Like I still spend an unhealthy amount of time on the internet, but it's less so that like I'm like chasing a number, and it's more so that like I'm just like this is maybe I'm addicted to like just like that feedback loop of like executing a successful trade or like learning some piece of new information or like incorporating something into my worldview and then like having that worldview be like validated as accurate or like learning new things from new people that I meet online. So that's mainly like what's been motivating me nowadays.
Dude, maybe it is dark, but I like fully back that take because it's one of these. It's like it's hard to decipher if it's crypto P&L or if it's the like transacting of ideas or it's like a little bit of both. But I really feel like there's a reason people never leave like crypto Twitter, tech Twitter, teapot Twitter, whatever we want to call it. There's like a reason you hit the number, then you stay. And we kind of joke like you can once you come, you can never really leave because I don't know, at least from as much as I know there's levels to the world. I've seen some levels, not all of them. At least from the levels I've experienced, there's no better place to exist as far as like being bleeding edge in what's happening in the world. And I don't know if you agree with this. I've always said crypto Twitter, which is relatively it could mean a lot of things. It's relatively fragmented and a little bit all over the place. But I've always thought like crypto Twitter is the best place to spend the next like 5 to 10 years on the internet and just spend way too much time in because as a proxy, you basically are exposed to the bleeding edge of every adjacent industry or internet industry, like everything that's happening in AI, everything that's happening in robotics, what's happening in politics, even though I'm not super tapped on the political side, everything that's happening in internet culture sort of all conforms around like price action in crypto niche, but really everything else. Like it feels to me if you were to hyper focus on one place for the next like decade to by default be as far ahead as possible. It feels like it's this place. I don't know if it's cope, survivorship bias, or like
I
sunk
wholeheartedly
cost.
agree with you. Wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think like this may be like kind of not I wouldn't even call it crypto Twitter anymore. Like I think it's like bigger than just crypto.
Great.
Like I mean I know internet capital markets is kind of like a loaded term, but like just ignoring the context behind it, just like literally like internet capital markets, right? Just like internet trading is the place to be. It incorporates every part of like civilization, like you said. And I think that's like 100% accurate take. I really like it.
As a follow up, I have this idea that I don't know how much you've thought about this. Like when I'm 24. When I was like 15, 16, it was like the earliest stages, I think, of the internet economy like boom. Like drop shipping went crazy, sneaker reselling went crazy. First time like young kids were trading, trading options. Robinhood early stages, like retail trading, at least as I know on the internet, like really went crazy. And so everyone that's like my age is like familiar with making money in weird ways on the internet. Everyone that's that age, like now, 14, 13, 12, 10, 15, 16, 17, it's like the default that you make money on some weird way on the internet. Roblox economy, Fortnite, there's streamers, everyone wants to be a YouTuber. Like you're familiar with basically trading internet coins. I'm curious how you think that evolved. Like, are you of the belief that basically every new generation that follows us is going to like gamble on internet assets on Twitter, basically? Like, is that gonna play out?
I think so, yes. And I think that's why this like sort of Zoomer millennial cohort became so ridiculously rich was that like they kind of like arbitrage. It's like they were like the first internet native generation
Yeah.
that coincided with sort of internet capital markets. They were the first to crypto, they were first to drop shipping, e-commerce, influencing, and because of that, they just got disproportionately rewarded. But like now, like Gen Alpha, like a lot of the easy stuff's already been plucked. So like these guys may not have as much opportunity in those like old sort of arenas. So like to some extent, like there's just less money to be made for them. But to another, like they might invent their own arenas where like this is like the Gen Alpha way of making money. And it's like unclear what those things are going to be as they like become more and more prevalent. Like, I don't know when Zoomer ends, right? Like Zoomer starts at like 97, 98. It's an end like 2007, 2008.
Zoomer age range. Up to 29. So 2012.
So like 2012. So they're like 14 right now. So like when these guys turn 20, like they might have their own game to play that like makes them money that we have like we're kind of unks in. Who knows? But I think being tapped into like what that game evolves into is very profitable. Yeah.
It's just like fascinating to see. And, you have more experience trading markets than I do, and a lot of people have way more than probably than both of us. It's just interesting to see like internet capital markets is a pretty applicable term to put on all of it because you just like sort of see all of these things like becoming one. You like directly see it, on Hyperliquid, but there's metals and there's stocks and there's crypto and there's everything. But you could like imagine whatever that next Gen Alpha like game is, however big it gets, it's sort of all like just merging into whatever you call like what we do every day, which is why I think bull market, bear market, Bitcoin 100K, sub 100K, 50K, whatever, you kind of just stay here because whatever happens next, you win or get exposure to as a proxy of existing, which is why I think the downfall of crypto Twitter is really overstated.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't call it. I guess like yes, like a lot of crypto stuff has been sort of, deprioritized by the algorithm, but I think it's like the algorithm telling us that like we need to move on to something that's like more universal and more interesting. And like yes, there may be like a year or two period where like there's just like nothing apparent or consensus, but I do agree that like if you stay plugged in and you stay active, like you will get rewarded for it. Like, this is the place to be, right? This is where like ideas evolve. This is where everything happens. This is like the center of evolution.
It really is. Like I always think like if I were to go down the street in New York right now and ask 10, ask 100 people if they know what Claude Code is, I would imagine, or if they've used Claude Code, I'd imagine it's like one person, maybe, you know, ran into an engineer, five people max. And so yeah, I 100% agree. Okay, I'm gonna ask you this to sign off. By the way, this is sick. I wasn't sure how this was gonna go, what direction we take it. This was honestly really fun. I wasn't sure too because I just hung out with you, so I'm like, am I gonna cover the same shit? Like, I don't know.
I think it's better that we hung out because like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can like stew on the ideas more. I mean, you're a very philosophical guy. You're like a thinker.
Well, I had to like,
So like,
I had to like
it was a
tap
good
into your
question.
mindset, bro. I had to fucking read some
Nah,
shit.
even naturally, dude. I know you're a thinker. You're an introspective guy.
Thanks, man. I know you are. Okay. Sign off question is like double-headed advice. One is for the majority of like, okay, my general age demo like skews younger and skews, you know, aspirational. Like I on offense, growing up in a weird time, markets are weird, trying to make it by any means necessary. Like, how do you play this game and ensure your success? And then my second part I could ask you after is like selfishly, personally, where you think all of this, you know, financial entertainment goes and how I
Okay.
play it. But go with the first one
Yeah.
first.
First one is like it's hard to give this kind of advice just because like by definition like everyone can't make it. So this is mainly just speaking towards the people that like are capital poor but are very talent rich. And it's like even hard to give advice to them because I almost feel like if they're talented, like it's just gonna work out for them no matter what they do. Um, but I'd say like for me, like when I look back at my first 6 months were like when I quit my job and I was just doing this full time and I was sort of just like barely making I wasn't making the money that I like knew I needed to make in order to justify doing this full time. And it was very stressful and existential. And I would get so frustrated with myself and I would just like not be sure of like if I was doing the right thing or not. And to be honest with you, like it only gets resolved in one way is just like eventually if it works out, then like you did the right thing. um, but like for me, it just manifested in like this, I guess like relentless, like sort of like burn the bridge behind you, where it's like I just cannot give up because like there's nothing to go back to. I'm stuck here. Like it has to work out. And that sort of mentality, you know, led me to like, doing 16, 18-hour days, like just relentless, like not taking any vacation. Maybe it was bad for me to like not keep up with a lot of my social interactions, but a lot of the times those like just had to do what was required to win. And like when I look back at that period, I'm very grateful that I did that and I was able to like sort of compound myself into like a repeatable edge and like find a moat for like what I do. And I do think like a lot of people like it's kind of like general advice where it's like you can really change your life if you just lock in for 6 months and just that's all you do. Like if I did like you could do that with working out and just get like insanely jacked in 6 months if that's all you focused on. Like if you just grinded one hobby for 6 months relentlessly, you could probably be like top like 1%, top 0.1% in the world. So I think that general advice just applies here.
It's a sick take. Think about doing that with ping pong, but no, seriously, it's a sick take. uh,
That's hilarious.
okay, then selfishly, like for me, but also like the genre of financial entertainment, if you will, which is relatively underexplored. I think we always joke who's the next generation Jim Cramer. Like it's relatively unexplored, where other content niches have gone parabolic over the last decade. How do you
Yeah.
see that this whatever this is playing out, evolving, its importance in the world, need to pivot, whatever?
Yeah, like we talked about this a little bit over dinner. Like I think a lot of times like going like not all views are created equal.
Mhm.
Um like just getting some like random dude in like some third world country versus like getting like a capital rich like well educated like crypto person that is talented, like one of them is worth a lot more than the other. um so I mean I noticed like you talk a lot from the frame of like trenchers and like people in Solana, and like that is like a good base, but I do think it can be like expanded. I mean, especially like if trenching doesn't come back for a while, like there are still a lot of other capital rich plugged in intelligent bases to appeal to. And I guess it's just figuring out like what kind of content they want to see while still making it entertaining for the people that like, you know, have watched you for a long time. So I guess that's what I would probably go towards if I were in your situation, which I've been like considering, you know, maybe like streaming too. But, you know, yeah. I think you have a much better, I don't know. I think you have a better personality for it, and like you have a team and everything set up, and you know you've done this for a long time. So
You have an ethical
yeah, I
and
don't know.
moral responsibility, Thicky.
I might just hop on your stream every now and
Just
then
come
and
on
then
once a
follow.
week or once a month and fucking we'll just rip it. Dump everything
Yeah.
out here first. Um, Dude, this was sick, man. It was the longest one I've done in a while. Thank you for coming on. I think we covered a lot of important stuff, and I wanted to use today to just reset a little bit, like cleanse the mind a little bit, reset, take a step back after, you know, a year of carnage, but a weekend, just brutal weekend, and sort of like give people a differing perspective, maybe a flat reset on how to think about some things. I think you called me the thinker, but you like invented the thinking thing. So thank you for your time, dude. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm hopefully see you soon, and hopefully we could do another one.
Yeah, down. Good
All right,
talking,
bye.
man. Take care.
Have a good one, man. Peace.